Hi, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn, what was the top story for you?
Eric Bowling being here.
Yes, Eric Bowling.
You guys are amazing.
That's all
What
we
a
need.
great experience it's been.
Yeah.
Eric
it
Bowling.
just started.
And you
You
have
showed me
it.
around.
Oh, yeah,
It's
okay,
first
all
time here, and so it's just off the charts.
And you have a show on CRTV.
See our TV show called America, because you can't spell America without
Eric.
Thank
I
you.
love that logo.
That is great.
I'm on his show today.
You're on the show today?
And I'm anxious to hear the audience feedback.
We got real in depth in some of the the behind the scenes stuff, the ideology behind what's going on, post-modernism.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, lots of Trump.
Lots of Trump.
For good reason, though.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay, yeah.
Not that we don't appreciate
it's
being
better.
here. We're very glad you're here.
Today, I think it's worth just taking a step back and talking about 9/11 and how it has impacted us.
Okay.
I look at one of the big things that's changed since 9/11.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, and some of the things that haven't changed since 9/11.
Okay.
So mysterious.
I know.
Wow, is that how we do it?
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Shrouded in
I
mystery.
try to get creative.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about the New York Times anonymous op-ed author and how it's affecting the nation and the presidency.
Wow, okay, good.
Awesome. All right, so 9/11, 17 years.
Actually, I want to hear his now.
Actually, you know what? Before we get into that, I want to make sure to thank our TV and podcast sponsor, Minnestalgia,
All right.
who I just heard. So first, they've got the wild rice. I know we talk about them all the time. I just got some choke cherry syrup from them that I am dying to try. It looks delicious, and I'm sure my son will love it because, you know, what? It's syrup. So
Yeah.
what's not to love?
Yeah,
So you can put the syrup on.
It says syrup is good.
You can put the syrup on the wild rice waffles. They've got the wild rice flour that you can use to make so many different things. I saw a recipe for banana bread that I'm going to try with the wild rice flour. They've got the jams and jellies. The beer jelly is a big favorite
really
here.
interesting, but why isn't it here? Like, why are you talking about it? And why
I
isn't it
had
on the
the
table?
spicy
I feel like
jelly
that's a sexist
today.
comment.
I don't even.
Well, kind of.
I don't even know what it was, but I had the spicy on my lunch today. They made something with the spicy jelly, and it was really good.
Was it?
Yeah. I don't even know what it was, but it was really.
It must have been one of the pepper jellies.
It was.
Okay, I have to try that. That's the one that I really want to try.
It's in the kitchen.
But so they are actually donating 10% of the proceeds that they receive to Mercury One and the Nazarene Fund. So you do not want to miss this deal. You get good food, and you also get to donate to a good cause. You can use the promo code HELP10 at blazewildrice.com.
We really need your support on the Nazarene Fund too. We're going to move our goal is another 16,000 Christians out of the Middle East by Christmas.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we need your help.
Okay, well, that's a good way to do it.
Yep.
So back to 9/11.
So it's interesting to me that the people who were born around 9/11 are going to go vote for the very first time. They've never known an America that wasn't at war. They've never known an America that really hasn't been at each other's throats. They don't. This happened. This happened 4 years before the world's largest social media site, which at the time, 4 years later, was MySpace. That's how long ago this thing was. It's starting to feel like an old-time movie. Kind of like when we were growing up, Korea or the Second World War was like. And everything has changed. We are unfortunately also changing history. Teachers are not allowed to really teach very much of it because it's still so controversial. We haven't changed anything with the way we talk about Islam. In fact, it's gotten worse. How we are expected to win this battle is beyond me. And if it's not America, it won't be fought. I mean, right now the Pentagon is in Yemen. We're using drones, and we're being very effective in Yemen, okay? Well, that's not part of the war. That's not something that's been declared. That's not something we're even talking about. Why? Because we can't talk about Muslim extremists. All of this will be for naught if we don't wake up on that one point soon.
Yeah.
A lot of that's changed, though. I think, that's one thing I could definitely give Trump credit for. I mean, he has taken it seriously. He has put people like Mattis in charge. He has been very open to say those things, and he's seen great advances with, ISIS, obviously, and no one wants to be at war all the time, but this is a problem that is serious enough that we have to be aggressive with it.
We won't be at war all the time and you saw with ISIS. You're not at war all the time. If you have a president with a little bit of a shaky eye or twitchy eye that's like, hey, you know what, I'm thinking about getting my gun. If we were hit again, there is no doubt in my mind that Donald Trump would be hands off and he would tell the Pentagon, get them. And we would, and it would be over quickly.
You say that these people who are about to be old enough to vote don't know a time where we weren't at each other's throats. But I recall before 9/11 happened, there was still, we weren't obviously as polarized as we are now. We were still polarized.
Yeah.
But directly afterwards was what they have no sense of. Was directly after 9/11.
Yeah.
We were so unified. I've never felt anything like it.
It's why the pendulum is so dangerous. We should have seen it at the time. It swung so far this way that it had to swing back, and unfortunately, it swung. I think it swung farther the other direction. I mean, and it hasn't really come back down for the whole nation again. Yeah. It's just swung into crazy. America is a horrible place zone.
That's the thing that amazes me every anniversary, though, because I remember back to that feeling that we had on 9/12, and that we were together, and that America had changed forever. I really thought we were a changed country, that we were headed the same direction, and there were just different viewpoints on how to get to that same place. And that lasted for about a month.
I think 3 months. In its totality, in about 3 months.
Yeah.
About a month was rock solid.
It was a short time, whatever the time period was, and we were right back to bickering at each other's throats.
Well, I visually watched the second plane fly into the World Trade Center, and I'll never forget that moment when the plume of smoke came out and then the fire came out. And then you're right, we did unify. We finally had a target. We had an enemy. We put a face to the enemy. It was Al-Qaeda, it was Taliban, it was terrorism, and we did unite. But I'll never forget, I won't even go a month. I'll say a couple of weeks later, and this was Lower Manhattan, I'm at a restaurant in Midtown, and it was like nothing ever happened. And I was so deeply affected by it because I saw so much of it.
Even in Manhattan.
Even in Manhattan, who there's a good portion of the population was exposed to it.
Yeah.
Well, within weeks, it was like enjoying drinks at dinner, and I was still somber, trying to figure out, how am I ever going to get out of this? Because I was really angry. I was really angry at the terrorists.
But I wonder if that's why it was like that in Manhattan, of all places, is because it hit home for people who were in Manhattan more than maybe someone who was removed.
I felt betrayed by the fellow Manhattanites who had I don't know, how could they be so cold to have witnessed one of the probably the worst terror event in the history of the planet, and then within a couple of weeks, and maybe it wasn't even a couple of weeks, that they could go and act like, can I get my wine? It was horrifying to me.
Don't you think, though, that it's possible that because Manhattan saw, it's the economy. It is the world economy. Saw that, okay, well, we're past that. The world economy is still okay. And then you have all of the intellectual elites from all of the universities there that are probably preaching pretty quickly that America is such a bad place and we got what we deserved, that there's not a real, Manhattan is an amazing place because it's not real life. It's not. It's a totally unique space. There's no other place in America, perhaps the world, that is like Manhattan. It's this small little island.
You know what, Glenn, for the better part of my life, 55 years or so, I would agree with you. And now I think in the last 5 or so years, whatever Manhattan was, the cultural, the financial, the importance, the news center of the country, maybe the world, I think it switched to D.C. I think that whole importance and everything that goes on that affects everyone, D.C. is now owning that space that Manhattan did for so many years.
Does that frighten you?
Frighten me.
It's not going to be our guy in office all the time.
I know it doesn't frighten me, though. It doesn't frighten me because of what I experienced with Manhattan days after the World Trade Center. It's a cold, cold-blooded, succeed at any cost, and that event happened, let's move on. I think D.C. has a little bit more of a longer-term view for the country.
You spend a lot of time in D.C. I just talked to somebody the other day who is in D.C. and plays a big role in D.C. and said to me, there's nobody in D.C., nobody in politics, either side, that actually believe in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. That's just a showpiece. That's nice. Yeah, it brings the kids in. They can see it. And we'll talk about it from time to time. But there is no one who is standing guard and saying, no.
Well, I'll push back on that. Maybe not the full entirety of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but I will tell you, First and Second Amendment are alive and kicking even in D.C., protecting them.
Moving on, Stu, your top story.
Let's talk about the Fourth Amendment, because that's an interesting one. That that one, I think you're right. I wouldn't put that on the list of things that we're protecting that well. In fact, one of the things when 9/11 happened that there was a big debate about was, understandably, we need more security. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to know who is doing what, and that was an understandable reaction, I think, at the time. And one of the big debates we were having back in the radio days, and I'm sure you guys were all talking about it as well, is this increased idea of more and more cameras, more and more, more and more ways for the government to monitor what you're doing. And it struck me the other day as we were talking about this attack in England, where they had this chemical attack that they found out it was 2 Russian GRU members. How did they find that out? There's a fascinating article in the New York Times, if I may consult my notes here.
I've got notes
today. Yes, that outlined how they did this, and this debate. It struck me as this debate is basically over. We've given into this, and there's going to be cameras everywhere for the rest of our lives, and this debate is completely over. Now this is this is Britain, so it's a little bit different, but then they've gone further than us. But there's now 1 surveillance camera per 11 citizens. It has cutting-edge technology for visually identifying criminals and software so sensitive it can scan an airport for a tattoo or a pinky ring. It has, let me give you a couple more things here. It has something called the Super Recognizer Unit. It sounds like a really
seems like something that was like on Get Smart.
It does.
Well, let's get the super recognizing unit on it.
Officers selected for their superior ability to remember faces. It's the opposite of face blindness. They don't concentrate on the obvious, the graying hair, the mustache, or the glasses. They look at eyes, mouth, ears, things that don't change. They can recognize a face from the tiniest glimpse of it.
Now, you know also the heat mapping. Are they using heat mapping?
Heat mapping. It's all there's so many things.
Wow.
And listen to this. It's almost impossible in this country to hide. Almost impossible. And with
this country?
No, this is talking about England. And with the new software, they can tell the person by the way they walk, the ring they wear, or the watch they wear. This to me struck me as a quote that would come from some libertarian activist, right? It's almost impossible to hide. No, it comes from the government communications headquarters of the Electronic Intelligence Agency in Britain. They're bragging about that world. And that is just that's terrifying. I mean, one of the things, at least here, that we're supposed to be able to cherish is our own privacy. It's in the Constitution. We're supposed to be able to do these things. And we've lost that fight without even fighting the battle.
China is way ahead. I think it's Beijing, one of the major cities in China. They have completed their 2020 surveillance, and the city is made up in 3 rings. So there's the outer ring, then a center, and then the main city here. Okay,
represented by the cauliflower.
Yes, this is the kind of this is where it starts to really go into Riceland or whatever. If you're in that first ring on the outer ring, there's a pretty good chance. It's like probably any American city, okay, not New York. The second ring is Manhattan, Washington D.C., London. You're not going really anywhere. Good chance of finding you. Absolutely everything in the center ring is monitored at all times. There is they had a guy come into the city. They had a picture of him. And they knew, I can't remember, they knew like 4 things about him. They unleashed him in the inner city, okay? 11 minutes it took to find him. 11. There are millions of people. 11.
Yeah.
Incredible. That's incredible.
Right. Back in a minute.
I guess. Oh.
Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that.
tracking.
Got a lot more to get into, but before we get into all of that, I want to thank our TV and podcast sponsor, Brickhouse. Pat is a big fan of Field of Greens.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Pat hates vegetables.
I can't eat them, and so I don't. And
Which your wife does
I'm an
not
adult
love.
now, and I can decide that. And but I was kind of concerned, that I'm going to get scurvy or something because I don't. I
that how you
get
get
no
scurvy?
fruits and vegetables in my diet.
Yeah, his wife, she wears an eye patch.
Hey, I'll run you up the mizzen mast for your scurvy lot. And so, now I know I'm getting, superfoods in my diet. I'm getting full servings of organic fruits and vegetables every day, which is something I never got before. So I love
I
it.
got to try this because
I just feel
I
bad.
eat him as much as he does.
We're
Yeah.
gonna make a smoothie or
Anything that
something
would make
for you
my
with
wife
that in
shut
there.
up over. You gotta have it.
This is it. It's got nothing but good stuff, plus a full serving of fruits and vegetables. So
Yeah, it's
this
good.
is going to be your go-to. So go to brickhouseblaze.com and use promo code GREENS for 15% off your first order, or you can text GREENS because they're super high tech here at Brickhouse. You can text the word GREENS to 41411.
Super high tech.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't call. You notice there was no phone number, right?
I got it.
All right. So the New York Times op-ed. Do you know who wrote it?
I do. Donald Trump wrote it. I'm just kidding, but wouldn't it be cool if he did?
It would be a great movie.
But let's talk about what this is. New York Times runs an anonymous op-ed, maybe one of the first ever, if not, it's very, very rare for them to do that, an editorial page.
In the last 3 years they've run, I think, 2. It is rare, but it's not completely.
But then they couch it in a senior level advisor to the president is very concerned about the future of the republic. So this person, he or she, is coming forward to tell us that, don't worry, they're working from the inside to make sure that Donald Trump, our president, duly elected president, isn't going to take over and do something that they're not happy with. So my question is, A, who is it? Because I think this person is a coward for doing it as anonymously.
And I don't believe that it is. To me, it has to be cabinet level or above. It has to be someone at his side if it's not on the cabinet.
Otherwise, it makes no sense. It doesn't matter what this person said. It's just someone with an axe to grind. More importantly, if you're so concerned about the republic, why are you anonymous? Are you worried about your job? Because the minute you do something like this and you're a senior level executive, you'll be on MSNBC, you'll be on CNN, you'll have 4 book deals. You'll be much better off by coming out. At least we would know this person is qualified to have these opinions about the president.
Here's the thing. I can't, and maybe you can make sense of this. I cannot make sense of if you're setting up, let's say, a run.
A run or a coup?
A run or a coup, okay. No, not a coup, a run.
Okay.
If you're setting up a run and you know you're going to leave, you want to be able to come out the other end and go, I was the guy who did this.
No doubt.
Okay. There I get that. I think it's slimy. I think it's wrong. I think it's unconstitutional personally, but I get it. If you actually care about your job, or you actually care about the country and you want to make sure, because you think he's so dangerous, the last thing you do is announce it.
Right.
Anonymous or not. You don't do that, because now you've lost the ability. He talked about Russia.
Well, now you've warned him that somebody is against him.
Right.
With someone who's already paranoid.
Right.
I mean, how much more paranoid
And
is that going to make him?
and they say, and we got him to do this on Russia. Well, next time you go into his office, say, Mr. President, what do you think about this with Russia? I don't care if that's the person or not. He's immediately going, I don't know. What do you think I should do? Your advice on Russia, no matter who it is no longer, it's now second guessed.
It's undermining not only the president, but all the senior advisors to the president.
Right.
You've taken the legs out of anything they may advise him on.
Because he'll question everybody. I would.
Of course he will.
Well, and they've already said today that now he trusts only a very small group of people. I mean, I'm sure he trusted.
blame him.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't blame him. Of course, he's going to trust Don Jr. He's going to trust Ivanka. And he's going to trust Jared, right? And
I wouldn't trust
that's about
anybody
it.
else if I were him.
He probably doesn't.
And I have to tell you, we didn't like this for another reason under Obama. Obama just thought he hung the moon in the stars and thought nobody is as smart as I am,
Right.
so I don't need to talk to my cabinet.
Yeah.
This world needs a president to be surrounded by the best minds that he trusts. This is This is awful what this person has done.
Well, especially a president with so little political experience. I mean, he has no political experience, so
Thank
you know.
God.
Yes, but I mean,
and
when
I think that's why he's been so successful, because
Yes.
he's broken all the political norms. He's not the
But I think you
politician in
meant
chief.
administrative, governmental
you need
administrative.
people around you who at
Right,
least have
not
experience
political.
and know. Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Not po-
No, why do you need that?
I mean,
Why
if you're
not break
dealing
the
with,
whole?
you're
why,
dealing
why
with
break?
Russia.
Why break the handlebars? Why not crush the bike and rebuild it from ground up? And I think that's what he's
I
doing.
think there are certain procedures you need to understand.
Yeah, like there's a lot of
Constitutional.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good. I mean, he's done a lot of good going down that road, right? He's done a lot of good questioning those norms, and I think he's smashed a lot of them in a good way. There's an example in the Woodward book that has about this whole situation with with Cohn taking
The
documents
papers
off
away
of his
from him,
desk,
so he
right?
didn't sign them.
Really bad.
But those are on the record comments from Gary Cohn.
Yeah, are they on the
I
record?
think he
thought-
admitted to this.
Did he admit to it?
I
I mean,
believe
he
it.
clearly is a source of the book, one of the sources, it seems like, at least. I mean, I haven't read the whole thing yet. But
Woodward would not have named Gary Cohn in the book if he wasn't the source. I mean, he just wouldn't.
unless
do that.
someone was saying there's someone else in the room is saying that he said that. I don't know. I'll have to go back and check it. You might be right on that. But my issue wasn't as much as that, because I think that's overtly bad, right? Like, you can't, if the president wants to do something, whether it's right or not, if you have the conversation with him and he wants to do it, you have to do it.
And if you don't, and you think it's a danger, you walk out,
You walk out.
quit, and say, here's why I
You
quit.
can't take papers off the guy's desk. But what the situation was is that he wanted to get it pulled out of a South Korean trade agreement. And look, he's obviously pretty protectionist when it comes to trade. That's kind of the way he's been for a while, and it's his prerogative. The issue, though, that they couldn't seem to get him on the right side of, in their opinion, was that there is a missile detection system that we have in South Korea. And the difference between if we have that in South Korea or we have it in Alaska, which is our other option, is the difference between detecting the missile in 7 seconds or 15 minutes. Now, this is not something, this is so huge, massive difference, right? And Mattis, made that case to him eventually, which I think got him on the right side of that. I believe the right side. But, he at that point hadn't gone to that level of,
Are we
due diligence
supposed to
on that.
believe that if he broke the South Korea trade agreement, that they would make us remove the missiles?
Look, again, it's a
I mean,
threat, right?
because
Like,
It's
we
a
got
threat.
30,000 troops on that border protecting South Korea.
I just saw
that was their threat, though, at the time.
I just saw Bob Woodward say, I don't think people are taking this seriously enough. I mean, he wanted to break the trade agreement with South Korea. And I thought to myself, well, Bob, there's about half of the country that
Doesn't care.
that look at these trade agreements and say they're garbage. It's one of the reasons he was elected. You could agree or disagree, but elections have consequences. That's not the same as he wanted to go over and appear with Kim Jong-un in his underpants. That's crazy. Him saying, I don't want to do this trade agreement, that's his prerogative as president.
Totally. And whether you think it's the worst thing in the world or the best thing in the world, if he decides it and it's under his control, he gets to do it.
And
it
if
just
I'm not
doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You can give your opinion to him, but stealing things off his desk to prevent it is not the right
And
way
if
to
I'm
do
not
it.
mistaken, the Constitution has made a stopgap here. Isn't the Senate supposed to vote on the trade agreement?
Well, yes.
Oh, yeah, it's
So
supposed to
then-
be under congressional
So if
control
he wants
anyway.
to do something crazy, the Senate can stand up and go, "That's nuts. We're not
Right.
doing that." That's
Right.
the gap.
Yeah, and that's Congress's fault.
All right, we got to take a break. Back in a minute.
And the Constitution gives control to Congress. They can have it.
We were discussing the pictures of all of the victims from 9/11, and Eric, you had an interesting.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that monitor. I have 16 very close friends I used to work with who are pictured there because they lost their lives on 9/11. They had a monthly meeting at the top of the World Trade Center, about the 115th floor or so. And that day, when the plane hit, they were in a conference room and had metal doors. They didn't die from the initial impact, but they couldn't get out of the conference room. And there are so many stories of my friends calling their wives at home saying, "Honey, I'm not coming home. We're going down." It's just heartbreaking, heart-wrenching.
Oh my gosh! First tower that went down or the second?
Second tower.
Oh, so they knew. Oh my God.
They knew it was happening.
Well, as we head into overtime, we want to take a minute to remember all of the victims. We'll see you in overtime.